Thank you for listening to the Catch Fire London podcast. For more information about CTF London, visit us on ctfl.life.
Welcome to Catch Fire. It is awesome to be here. And as we saw in that video, we are looking at a new series today called the I Am Statements of God. Who was in church? I think it was an evening service where Chloe preached I think maybe it was November, and Chloe went through the different I Am Statements of God. Who was there for that? If I would really encourage you to listen to that sermon, because it's a bit of a rundown of what we're actually going to be looking at over the next couple of months, the I Am Statements of God. But what we're starting at today is actually the first one, which is the I Am statement that God gives in Exodus. I am who I am. Okay, this is where we're going to start off today, and in sort of a slightly untraditional sense, we're going to have a PowerPoint, because I'm visual, I'm a boy, and I need to see pictures of things to understand them. So we're going to go through this, and I'm calling this I Am Who I Am, or I am in fact who I say I am, because we are very familiar with the statement I am who I am. It's one of those Christian statements like John 3:16. We're very familiar with it, and familiarity can sometimes rob and steal the true meaning of something. And so I want you, when we're talking today about I am who I am, well, when I say we are talking, I mean I'm talking, you're listening, but let's pretend this is a conversation. I am in fact who I say I am, because I truly believe if we get that truth, then there is no limit to the amount of miracles and supernatural movement we should see in our lives. Amen? Because if we get He is who He says He is, then every single prayer we should be praying should have a level of force and power and certainty behind it. That means that we are never in a position of doubt or worry or concern or anxiety, if we get that He is who He says He is. And we're going to dive into a little bit of that today. And what I really believe we're going to end at the ministry, where I want to end at. Has anyone seen the latest Star Wars film? Okay, there's a line in it. No spoilers. There's a line in the trailer, no less, where the history of the film in 2 seconds: good guys resistance, fighting bad guys first order. That's all you need to know. And there's a line in the trailer where one of the good guys says, "We are the spark that will light the fire that will bring the first order down." Nice line. And what I felt the Father wanted to do, and there is a theological reason for me saying that, is I felt in the ministry today, what we're going to do at the end of today is the Father is going to release a spark that is going to light a fire that is going to change something in your life. But the fire is going to start once you walk out of this room. Okay, because one of my biggest things that I keep feeling that I'm pushing, in whenever I preach is, 95% of the issues we face, the challenges and the anxiety and all the rest of that, 95% of it doesn't actually happen in this room. Like, I don't feel usually the weight of all of my problems and my challenges when I'm in this room, because I feel lifted by everybody else. And I feel lifted by the worship and the faith of the people in the room. So I don't have my on my knees, oh my word, what am I going to do about this issue moments in this room. I have them in my living room, or I have them at the front door when I see a brown envelope. Those are when those moments kick in. And so it's amazing when the Father does something in this room. And who's got faith for the Father doing miraculous in this room today? Amen. But what is equally, and sometimes if not more amazing, is when He does something that you manage to take in your car or on your bus or on your train, and you take it back to your house, and then you then see the supernatural happening in normal life. Yeah? So we're going to look at this. I am who I am. So would you like to turn to Exodus 3, and we're going to dive in. I'm going to try and cover as much as I can in the time that we have. So, Exodus 3. I'm going to just read through some of this. Now, Moses was tending to the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led his flock to the far side of the wilderness, and he came to Horeb. He came to Horeb, the mountain of the Lord, and the angel of the Lord appeared to him in the flames of fire from within a bush. Moses saw that the bush was on fire and it did not burn up. So Moses thought, I will go up over and see this strange sight, why the bush does not burn up. When the Lord saw that Moses had gone over to look, God called to him from within the bush, Moses, Moses. I'm just going to pause there for a second. Verse 4. When the Lord saw that Moses had gone over to look, God called to him. Does the Lord see your curiosity towards him? The call came when Moses stirred his curiosity to go and look. I think that's interesting. Moses, and Moses said, here I am. Do not come any closer, God said. Take off your sandals, for the place where you're standing is holy ground. Then he said, I am the Lord, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, and the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. At this Moses hid his face, because he was afraid to look at God. The Lord said, I've indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I am concerned about their suffering. So I have come down to rescue them from the hand of the Egyptians and bring them up out of that land into a good and spacious land flowing with milk and honey. Jump forward to verse 13. Moses said, suppose I go to the Israelites and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me, and they ask me, what is his name? What shall I tell them? God said to Moses, I am who I am. This is what you're to say to the Israelites. I am has sent you. God also said to Moses, say to the Israelites, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob has sent me to you. Okay, 2 points God is making here. I am who I am, and I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. 2 simple points. I am who I am. I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So 3 conclusions we can make from this. Number 1, you cannot box me in. You want a name, you're not going to get a name. I am who I am. Silence. Nothing. It's a massive point, let me just tell you. Underline it. I am who I am. You're not going to box me in. You're not going to denominalize me. You're not going to get a definition that you're going to be happy with, I'm afraid. Number 2, from this moment on, you need to know that everything I say about myself is true. I am who I am is God's way, one of God's ways of saying, I am absolutely everything that I say I am. We've got a song, Who Shall We Say You Are? You're the living God. You're all you say you are. That you are all you say you are should be probably the highest praise we could give him. Yeah, everything you say you are. And you say you're holy and good and wonderful and glorious and mighty. You're all of that, God. I am who I am. You can't box me in. I am everything I say I am. And the third point, I am their God, Moses, so you work it out. I am the God of Abraham. I am the God of Isaac. I am the God of Jacob. You work out who I am. Because the stories of those 3 patriarchs would have been incredibly well known among the people of Israel. They got their name from Jacob, who had his name changed from Jacob to Israel. I am your God, and I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So right off the bat, Moses is given this sort of conundrum because in one sense he can't define God. In the other sense, he's been given a statement that he should filter everything God says by from this moment on. Everything that God says about himself is true. And then the third thing that he receives is that he is the God who has previously been moving in this nation's life. Okay, he's the God who took Abraham into the promised land, in the direction of the promised land. He's the God who landed on Isaac, the miracle baby. Isaac who sowed in famine and reaped a harvest. And he's the God of Jacob who blessed him, who protected him, who traveled with him, who opened up the angelic ladder in front of him when Jacob was in the desert. I'm their God. And now I'm presenting myself to you. And I also like the fact that God says, when you go back, I am the God of your fathers. I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. It's interesting. Now, this may be a translation thing, but it's interesting. He doesn't say, I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He says, I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. For me, that reads personal. I am Abraham's God, and I'm also Isaac's God, and I'm also Jacob's God. So what do each one of us know about God? Because we are in this room because we have some communal beliefs. At least I hope we do. Okay? We've had some funny moments over the last few years where it turns out some people in the room did not believe certain things that we all thought we believed. Wow, cold really makes people sort of funny bones just go into retreat, doesn't it? Anyway, what do we know about God? The thing is, there are so many things to know about God, and however you align yourself in a church or a ministry, there are going to be certain elements that you focus on more than others. And the thing is, there's just so much more about God than we've ever got capacity to understand. So, we have a God of love. We have a God of grace. We have a God who forgives. I will, Dan G. We have a God of fire. Say fire. We have a God of fire, purifying fire, destructive fire, holy fire, anointed fire. We have a God of compassion. I've heard Stu speak before of the splanchnizomai, the twisting of the stomach as the Father saw the Son in Luke 15. We have a God of compassion. We have a God of holiness. Look at the visions that Isaiah has. Look at the visions that John has in Revelation of the holiness of God, the purity, the set-apartedness of God. We have the justice of God, the law. We have a Father. In the Old Testament and the New, he didn't just become a father in the New Testament. Look at some of the scriptures. Look at some of the scriptures in Isaiah about how he used to carry us when we were in the womb. All throughout your wilderness journey, I carried you like a father carries a son. He's a father. The whole Bible says he's a father. He is an equipping God. Look at the gifts of the Spirit, the fruits of the Spirit. He is a nurturing God. It just goes on and on and on. I don't have enough PowerPoint slides to say as many attributes as God has. Can we all agree on that? Okay. So the thing is, he is a God of limitless and phenomenal capacity. And we're incredibly blessed to be in a house that has revelation, that is seeking fresh revelation. But do you know what? Even within our house, we just have a portion. We just have a section of God's goodness. And what I feel the Father really wants me to go after today was for those who, whether you've been a Christian for 40 years or whether you've been a Christian for 4 days or even 4 minutes, you will have a portion of understanding of who God is. But it is just that. It is just a portion. Now, I'm very confident in the portion of knowledge that I have about God. But I am also becoming increasingly aware that I have the little shaving of the top of the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the fullness of who God is. I only have a portion. Now, I have a little kind of Trivial Pursuit cheese chunk for anyone who played that. Now, when I came into this church, I had a lot of different church backgrounds leading me in. I had a bit of Catholicism when I was younger, a bit of Anglicanism when I was a teenager, a bit of Vineyard when I was a 20-something, and a bit of Charismania as a 30-year-old. So I don't know where I'm going next, maybe Baptist or, I don't know. Maybe I should just not say things. But this is something that I know I'm walking in right now. This is part of my understanding of God. There is... Does it work? Ooh. I know the batteries are low, so maybe I shouldn't use the little pointy light thing, but it's cool. Now, I know I've got a portion of understanding, an increased understanding of God's love. I have an increased understanding of his grace, because when I came into this church 8 years ago, I was so full of shame about my sin. I was so full of shame about sin, and I didn't understand grace. I understood grace through an earthly understanding, 3 strikes and you're out. Like, that's grace, but that's what I thought it was. But I have an increased understanding of grace. I have an understanding of forgiveness now, and I've got a little bit of fire in me, and I want a little bit more. In fact, I want a lot more. Amen? But this is what I've got right now when I'm thinking of God and who he is. When he says, I am who I am, this is who I tell people about. I tell him he's a God of love and forgiveness, and he's a father, and he's got fire, he's got power in him. And this is amazing, but the problem with this is if I just focus on that, then I've got the love and the grace and the approachability of God and the forgiveness and the power that he wants to use through us. But what I don't have is a strong understanding of the holiness, the set-apartedness, the fear of the Lord, the heaven's justice, the judgment seat of Christ. These are all huge things in Scripture. And yet, if I just focus on one side, then I'm actually losing quite a lot of extra truth. Does that make sense? And it's not that what I've got is wrong. It's just what I don't have is significant. Are you tracking? Now, Stu says this quite a lot to our leaders and when we're dealing pastoral situations. You don't know what you don't know. Okay? You know, it is profound because you don't know what you don't know. And it's very easy in our renewal movement to get excited about revelation and then sometimes to even judge people who don't have that revelation. Oh, I can't believe they don't know that God's a father. I can't believe they don't know that they're walking in judgment. Or that they've got a bitter heart. Like, oh, if only they knew that they were creating this cycle with their belief structure. They're like, well, if they don't know that, then they don't know that they don't know that. Yeah? And like sometimes without meaning to, we can become a little bit sort of huffy and puffy about other people's level of revelation. And you don't know what you don't know. I'm a primary school teacher by training. I've had loads of experience of being around people who don't know anything. Little people and some adults. Some parents. Bless those parents. But you don't know what you don't know because there's so much more of him. When he says, I am who I am, he's saying you can't box me in. There is not one world church expression that's going to cover it all. Like when I was younger, I remember I used to argue. I had this argument with someone in my church who didn't like the evening service. They didn't like the youthy service. And I was just like, if you could just get what we've got, then our church would be so much better. Because what you've got is just boring. And like you stand up, you sing the song, and then you sit down, and the 20-minute sermon, and then you stand up again and sit down. Like we're free, and we're like singing Matt Redman songs, and I just had this belief that really what the global church needed to do was get together, decide how we were going to do a service, do it the way that I thought we should do it, and then there would be sort of peace and harmony within the church. It's just not going to work. Like it just When we go to Kenya, I heard about the mission trip. We go to Kenya. I tell you, we worship with our Kenyan staff and our kids, and we sing English songs. I tell you, when they sing in Swahili, it just goes to another level. Like they like some of our English songs. They like singing "Bless the Lord, O my soul." But when we sing in Swahili, "Iwewe tu Bwana," it goes to another level. Now, us taking our culture and what we know and our catch the fire-isms and telling them this is how you're meant to do it, that is actually going to restrict them. Because you have to worship through who you are. You have to approach God as who you are. And so, as much as what I've got is great, it's not the whole. Now, the other way this can go, let's do this. Matt and Kate. That is meant to be in there, yeah. Oh no, my holiday snaps have made it in there. Matt and Kate. So a few weeks back at our Christmas party. Now, I could tell you a lot about Matt and Kate, our worship pastors. I could tell you how they are as friends. I could give you a ton of information about their sense of humor, how goofy they are. I could also tell you about how phenomenally pastoral and strong and prophetic as leaders they are. I can give you an awful lot of information from my experience. But their parents' experience is going to be very different from mine. Matt's brother's experience is going to be very different from mine. And what we probably would all say is if you want to get to know them, if you want to know Matt and Kate, then I suggest you know them. You don't look for information about them. You get to know them. And this is the problem that sometimes what we can do is that we can allow ourselves into a position where we are being informed about God. by a lot of people, to the point where we have a very small appetite and a very small stomach to receive anything directly ourselves. I wonder for how many people in this room, hand on heart, would say that the revelation and the understanding you have from God, how much of it comes from your direct encounter with him, and how much comes from the sermons you hear, the podcasts you listen to, the books you buy, the songs you listen to. How much of your revelation is actually coming because you're looking him in the eyes and you're hearing his mouth make noises in your direction and tell you about himself? Now, I'm not meant to be rebuking because, hey, look, I'm looking at a mirror here. But Francesca Lima in the house, everyone. Come on. But this is the thing. God said this to me when I was preparing the other day. If you only know what other people tell you about God, then you are positioning yourself as a mutual friend to him rather than an intimate companion or adopted child. Like we're all got the Facebook thing going on. Mutual friends. God. Intimate friendship is very different to knowing things about him. Okay? Knowing history, habits, patterns, characteristics, information, none of these are substitutes for knowing him. Okay? And I feel like I want to just go a little bit after our potential Christian consumer culture that we have, where we sit and we listen and we let someone else direct our relationship with God. And I do realize the irony that I'm telling you about that right now. But the thing is, if we don't have our own personal, intimate relationship with him that goes beyond just what we've got in our little cultural corner, then we will never go beyond what we know, when we'll never step into I am who I am. We'll never step into that stuff. There's stuff at this church. I love this church so much, but there's stuff that we don't talk about. There is. It's just because we have our values. We have our 5 values. That is the DNA of this church. Tom says this all the time. Every time you go to a Catch the Fire event, whichever way you slice us, you should see the 5 values. The Father heart of God expressed through the cross of Christ. Intimacy in hearing God's voice. Restoration of the heart and healing of life's hurts. Equipping and anointing of the saints. Fun and multiplication of leaders. You should see that through whatever we do. But I bet you if you go to Hillsongs, you're going to see something different. I bet you if you go to the Pentecostal church, you're going to see something different. There's more to God than we've got. Turn to the person next to you. There is more. There is more. Now, I'm racing along here a little bit just because I want to honor our timing. But what if the portion you've got is different to the portion I've got? We see this quite a lot in when new people have joined the church, perhaps from other church expressions or no church expression. What if the bit that you've got is you've got the justice of God and the holiness of God and the Father heart of God, but that's all you've got? What is your perception of the great I am then? Because I know a ton of people who have got this understanding of God. God is a God of justice, the law, purity. No sin can come near him. He is holy, and he's just enough of a father to beat you with it. Yeah? I know he's a father, and the only conception I've got of father is distant, aggressive, abusive. Fill in whatever blank you've got. A lot of people have this understanding of the great I am. Do you see how important it is that we have the whole counsel of Scripture, that we have everything? Yeah? I said to Tom beforehand, I sometimes talk out my preachers at home. I walk up and down the corridor at home, and I did it when I was forming this preach about 2 days ago, and as I was speaking it out, just because sometimes you go on little rabbit trails and it's good to sort of have an idea that they're coming. And I did it on Thursday night, I think, and this preach was really encouraging. And then I did it last night, and this preach was a real rebuke. So I kind of said to Tom when I came out, I'm not really sure which way I'm going with this. I hope it's encouraging, but it's not meant to be a rebuke. But you know, we have the same we have the same problem, that we can have a good understanding that he's holy and pure and that justice is important to him and he's a father. But then we miss the fact that he's not, that he is a loving father, that grace overturns justice, that he gave up everything to save us, that his son died to fulfill the law, that he forgives and he redeems. Now, where I want to get to, and this is where I'm talking in generalities, I want to get personal now. How do you work out how much revelation, understanding you have of God's character, who he is? How do you work out where you've got gaps, essentially? It's a good question, I hear you say, Alistair. Will you please tell us the answer? Okay, I heard there's a phenomenal teacher in the church at the moment called Craig Rochelle. He's the pastor of Life.Church, which created your Bible app. Many of you got the little brown Bible app. They phenomenal ministry, and interestingly, a ministry created out of failure, because they tried to create a Bible website before the Bible app came. Turned out to be a complete disaster. Nobody went on, wasted a lot of money on it, a lot of time, very demoralizing. And then they came up with an app. I think now there's something like 250 million people in the world who have that app on their phone. Sorry? YouVersion, yeah, the YouVersion Bible app. It's a phenomenal teacher, and I was listening to a teaching of his a little while ago, and he said this, and it's, you know, you hear a phrase sometimes and you just think, that's probably going to be in my head for a couple of decades. You know, when Paul Manwaring stood up here and said, about 5 years ago, said, this is what I've learnt about God. He wastes nothing and he gets you ready. Like, that's in my head now for the rest of my life. This is what Craig Rochelle said. The area of your greatest anxiety will also be the area of your least trust in God. I realize I left the word be out there. Just for anybody who's spell checking me. But the area of your greatest anxiety will be the area of your least trust in God. Why? Because you are doubting that he is who he says he is in that area. Now, it sounds like you're intentionally doubting. You are being rebellious, child of God, by doubting. I don't think that's the case. I think it's we're afraid that he's not who he says he is. That we have this portion of God that we feel confident about. But this situation that's coming up is not in our little cheese, our little portion. And therefore, all of our orphanness, all of our fear, all of our propensity to doubt and to get scared starts rising up. Because I'm not sure if he is who he says he is in this area. Because in the past, I maybe have evidence of not being looked after. I've got pain, or I've got family situations or circumstances that would prove otherwise. I want you just to close your eyes right now. What do you know in your heart truly is an area that anxiety can build up in? Could be any number of things: health, finances, relationships, marital future, your job, your career, your calling. Are you being successful at life? Are you being what you thought you were going to be when you were 15? Whatever it is. Because why would anxiety rise up unless you felt confident in God in that area? Why would it come? I don't feel anxiety about the love of God. Do you know why? I feel confident in the love of God. A couple of days ago, went through my taxes, nice and early, for last year. And because of my circumstances, I rent a flat out. I was very blessed to have a few years ago, and I rent it out, and so I've got a bit of, I need to do taxes for that. And none of my circumstances have changed since last year. Like, everything should be normal. You can tell where this story's going. Everything should be normal. So I didn't get going with it very early. I thought, well, it's going to be about the same as it was last year, the same as the year was before. Fine, no problem. Did a little calculation, gave me a quote for how much my taxes were going to be. They were a little bit more than I was expecting. Okay. Now, traditionally, my anxiety has been majorly towards provision. Majorly towards provision. Because I have an amazing family, but I had a father who was self-employed growing up, an architect, and when the recession hit in the 90s, that made family life really hard. And so I would hear things like, oh no, we've got another bill. I don't know how we're going to get through this month. And things like that were said in our family because it was tight. Now, I absorbed those things, went into my life as a young adult with a fear of finances. Yeah, I'm sure many people have their own version of that. Probably many people have their own version of fear of finances. I had that fear. And so when God told me 7 years ago, to quit my job and come into ministry, I made him wait 8 months. He asked me around October time. I didn't hand in my notice from my job until June, July time because I needed about 8 months to panic about finances. What if my flat gets repossessed? What if my parents see me fail and I have to go to them with my begging bowl? What if all of my friends who have got massive jobs in London see me and think, oh, he's throwing away his education? What if? I had such a long time of stressing because I had anxiety. And the Father has really been beating me over the head with a loving stick over the last few years to say, I am who I say I am. I have not changed. Do you know what? I've been God for quite a lot longer than you've been alive. And I have gone on a journey of healing in this area. And I have a growing confidence. And a few years ago, when I did my first ever tax thing, filled the form out completely wrong, ended up costing me quite a lot of money because of that. I remember getting down on my knees in my flat. I remember texting Tom and Chloe and Abby and saying, I've got this massive bill, I don't know what I'm going to do, and freaking out because I had such an anxiety that was just a mask for a lack of trust of God in who he said he was. The anxiety was just a ruse to the fact that what was really going on was I didn't believe that God was who he said he was. Now, 2 days ago, when I went through this thing, I think I freaked out for about 25 seconds. I'm going to admit to that. I had about 25 seconds of, oh no, what's going to happen? And then I rallied because I know he is who he says he is. Because I know that he can't be boxed in by my circumstances. I know that everything he says about himself is true. And I know that he's the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who had far harder circumstances than I do. And do you know what came into my head? And I'm going to sing. But I had this song. I've seen you move the mountains. And I believe I'll see you do it again. You know that song? You made a way where there was no way, and I believe I'll see you do it again. And I just sung that in my living room, and then I got on with it. Job done. He's going to make a way. He's done it before. I've said numerous times, I don't have a testimony of him not coming through. So I don't have a testimony of him not coming through, so why 2018? Why is that suddenly going to be the year when he doesn't come through for me? Okay? This area, our greatest anxiety can release our revelation of where we actually trust him the least. Coming into land. Famous last words. Another one that the Father just said to me, and this may stir, if that one didn't get you, then this one may. The greatest area of reluctance to be used in the kingdom will probably be the area where your next greatest revelation of who he is will be found. Okay, where are you reluctant to be used? Where would you rather not be used in the kingdom? Where would you rather somebody else who's anointed do it so you don't have to? Because I believe that your next revelation of who he is will be found in that thing. Tom's been talking a lot. I really respect Tom because he has said publicly that evangelism is not an area that he is naturally drawn to. Yet Tom has been going out on the streets with JJ, who is like an evangelism fireball, hailing people down in their cars to tell them about Jesus. And I know that as Tom has come alongside him and allowed him to be stretched, Tom's heart for the lost has gone up hugely. We were sat in Toronto round a table when Tom had a download of God's heart for Muslim people. And a waiter or someone said, I'm from Iraq, or I don't know, I can't even remember what it was. Tom just went, and fell off the chair. Like literally, we were just in a bar. Well, not like the church coffee shop. They just said, I'm from Iraq, or I've got a Muslim mother or something. And Tom's like, and then just hit the deck. I know that revelation is coming because, I know that revelation is coming because Tom is stepping into an area, I hope you don't mind me talking about you, stepping in an area of which he had not stepped into before, of which there is revelation still to be found. Where are you reluctant? Why don't you just close your eyes? We're coming in to finish now, but why don't you just close your eyes right now and just say, God, where am I reluctant to be used? Where do I not want to be used? You know, we all love the Jeremiah verse, don't we? It's everyone's favorite verse. For I know the plans I have to you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you, not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future. Everyone loves that verse. Everybody knows it. Along with Jesus wept, it's everyone's favorite memory verse. We know that one. But you know the other half, the bit that comes later, the bit that comes next. Then you will call on me and come and pray to me, and I will listen. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. I will be found by you. We love quoting the future plan bit because that's the bit where we kind of just have to sit in our armchair and the great plans and the revelation and the future will come to us because he's got it covered. But the next bit is actually requires a bit of movement from us, a bit of motion. When you seek me with all of your heart, I will be found. It's like the father playing hide and seek with his kid. He's hiding behind the curtain with his feet sticking out. If you look for me, you're going to find me. You're not going to struggle to find me. And I know that my problem sometimes is I want to camp. I want to make my base on pondering and considering the plans and the future and all of that. Whereas actually God is wanting me to use that as a projectile, as a movement pusher into seeking who he is. And there are many ways to do it. The ways that I felt the Father say for today were, where is your anxieties and where is your reluctance? Because they will open a door to where the next revelation is to be found. Let's stand. We're going to finish in 1 minute. Danji, do you mind coming up? Oh. You know, if you go through the scriptures, and you will see through the New Testament in the Gospels, I've said this a few times from the front, the most excited you ever see Jesus is when someone has faith. Jesus was exasperated. Jesus was excited. Jesus was astounded. Jesus was happy. Any of the times you see those phrases, it is almost always to do with the fact that someone had faith. In fact, I need to go through the Bible to prove this, but I'm going to say it's because the person had faith. What is faith? It's us getting that he is who he says he is. That's why I think Jesus got so excited, because you believe me. You believe that I am who I say I am. You get it. And so this morning, before we just go into ministry, I want you just to turn that inner eye on yourself, and what is my faith level? What is my faith level for him being everything that he says he is? Do I believe he is everything he says he is? Does my heart believe it? I can guarantee you probably all of your heads agree with me. Does your heart? When was the last time you freaked out? When was the last time you spun out? When was the last time a message or a letter or a bill or a circumstance going the opposite way than you thought it would? When was the last time that anxiety rose up? Because the Father, I believe, this morning wants to put a spark in each one of us that's going to light a fire, that's going to bring that anxiety away from the kingdom of darkness, away from the world's wisdom, and bring it into the house of God, where it becomes a truth about who he is. And I want to encourage you right now, if when I talked about that anxiety, if that stirred something in you, if you knew, do you know what, I've got one of those, I got a big flaming one of those, then I want to encourage you, just come up to the front. And if when I said about the reluctance, if there is a reluctance in a ministry area in your heart, there is something you know you just don't want to be picked for that, you don't want to volunteer for that thing, then I want you to come up as well. And if you've got no anxieties and no reluctance to be used, then I want you to come to me and impart to me whatever it is you're carrying, because I desperately need it. And I just want you to hold your hands out right now. Ministry team may move around in a moment, but let this be between you and God. Let this not be about someone. We believe in impartation. We believe in laying on of hands, and that we believe in the ministry of the saints. But everything I've been saying this morning is about, this needs to be you and him. This has to be you and him. This has to be your heart encountering his heart. And what I just felt when I was praying about this yesterday was, I saw little sparks like firelighters or like sparklers at a fireworks thing just in the palm of people's hands. And I felt the Father was releasing a spark that if you tended it, if you carried it, if you protected it from the wind when you leave this place, and you took it home, and you applied it in your life, that it will become a fire. And that fire will be the power of God in the place that you need it. And so I'm not even going to give you the language right now. I'm not even going to tell you what to pray. But I exhort you and I encourage you right now to ask for that spark of his presence right now. Nothing that's worth having in the kingdom of God comes unless we own it. Unless we say, me, God. Pick me. Here I am, send me. When we're half-hearted or we're just doing it because someone tells us to do it, it doesn't come. God needs a heart sold out for him. And so I just encourage you, God, I have an anxiety. I know it comes up. I know it manifests. I know when this thing happens, this anxiety comes up in me. And what it does, God, is it just makes me doubt whether you are who you say you are. You are the great I am. Give me some of that fire that was in the burning bush. And I want you just to, in your mind's eye and your spirit, man, just to picture it in your hands right now. What are you going to do? What are you going to do to protect this? Because I feel the Father this week for you wants to blow on it, wants to put oxygen to the flame, so that when that moment comes up, you may have 25 seconds where you're spinning out, but then come second 26, you've rallied and you've reminded your soul, you've strengthened yourself in the Lord like David did. So I'm going to lead a quick prayer, and then Danji's just going to lead us in some worship. Ministry team are going to come around. We're just going to bless what's happening. We're just going to bless what he's doing. But you know, Psalm 9 says that those who put their trust in the name of the Lord will never be forsaken. So when we put our trust in who he is, we are on safe ground. We are on the cornerstone, like Danji sung about earlier. And so let's pray. I'm going to lead you in a prayer. You just repeat the words. God, you are who you say you are. I believe you are who you say you are. I remind my soul right now that you are all you say you are. And right now, as an act of my will, I choose to receive what you're giving. That I would have a flame burning in my life that will consume every anxiety, every reluctance that has caused me in the past to doubt that you are who you say you are. You are who you say you are, and that is that. Amen. Just keep receiving from our ministry team. Just move around. Bless what you see God doing.